So my name is Harneet Kaur. So I'll be your host in presenting the API testing. And
can you try now, Harneet?
Yeah. Yes, I'm able to. So are you able to see my screen, everyone?
Yes.
Yes.
Great. So we'll keep this session as interactive as possible. So meanwhile, if you have any doubts, just text on chat and you can unmute yourself and ask questions.
Okay.
Great. So we'll be starting API testing. So first of all, before we start, we should be aware of like what is the client and server architecture. So client is basically where you send your request. So if in a very simple example, this is google.com. This is my client. So I'm just sending request and I want a server to send me response in the form of this web page. So if I click on view page source, this is the actual response which I'm getting from the server. Sorry, my voice is a bit sore. I'm having sore throat. So in case if you want me to repeat myself, just let me know. So this is the actual response which we get from the server. So this is the HTML response, and Google is your web browser which just interprets this response back. So this is what, like in a very simple terms, client is which initiates the request, server sends the response back, and the browser is the one which interprets the request. So we're having the 3-tier structure in this. So 1 tier, 2 tier, 3 tier. So 1 tier is very simple, like client and the file server. For example, the MS Word. You don't need a LAN or network connections, just a normal file server. And then 2 tier, client and DB. So here we are not requiring any network connection. No internet connection is required. It's just that the client, and we will get response from the DB. And then 3 tier. Here API comes into picture. So the client and BL is your business logic and DB is your database. For example, web application. So if I open maybe cnn.com, I'll come to this later. So client is basically your UI, or in a very simple term, there are 3 layers: your presentation layer, UI, and it just need a JavaScript language. And to test the UI, you need a Selenium tool. Like you have heard, Selenium tool is used for web UI testing. So we'll fetch web elements using that Selenium tool. So this is the client presentation layer. Business logic is where your programming languages like Java, .NET comes into picture. And database is your normal SQL, Oracle DB. So where the data is stored. So database needs database testing. Client is presentation layer, which we use Selenium for web UI testing. And here in business logic, application layer, API testing comes into picture. So what's the relevance of API testing? Like if the developer is working on, creating the web pages, working on UI creation, so there's a time for tester. So testing can't be done since UI is not developed yet. So what we can do to reduce the time is we just send an API request and they get the response from the server just to check if the proper functionality testing is done. Like functions are correct and giving a correct response. So most of the testing is done via API, and then you don't just do some web UI testing, then your work is finished. So API testing is performed in the application layer, avoiding the presentation layer so that it is reduced for like reducing the load for UI testing. So we're not bothered about the look and feel of the application since we are not working on testing UI part, only the API part. So just the communication between the two systems, we are sending a request and getting the response back. This is all API. So API as a full form, application programming interface. So interface, application programming layer, it's an interface between these two, client and database.
I think, Harneet, if just correct me if I'm wrong, but another scenario when we do API testing is like, sometimes the client might not be showing the information as it is expected. So, maybe to dig deeper and seeing whether the API is wrong or the client is wrong. Sometimes it's because
that's why we, like Postman tool is used to test the API. So if we requesting any HTTP, if we are sending any HTTP request, we'll get the response. Then we can validate if the response is correct or not. So if that API is like APIs are correct, it's just that if we are getting the correct response, which is expected or not. So check it later, like within few minutes.
Okay.
And I will show you this Postman tool.
Yeah.
So yeah, API is basically a normal collection of programs which, performs one task for you. So performing tasks like, getting you a web page if you request for it. So if I'm having just 1 minute, I just need to complete one thing. You might have heard like APIs, RESTful APIs, and then web services. And many people are confused, like what is the difference between API and web services? So web services is like API wrapped in HTTP protocol. So when the API is moved to web, it is known as web service. Like if I'm in a developer environment, so I'll just call an API like API only, not a web service. But if the API is moved to web, it is known as web services. And mostly we work on web services since mostly we work on a network. For example, I'll explain you with an example. So this is a CNN website. So you can see many links here. So each and every link, is a response from a server, and who brings that response is the API, or not API, web services, since it's a web. So these links in the backend, there are many web services, which is, bringing this response to the user if you are sending a request. I hope it makes sense. Everyone good at this? Just give me a thumbs up.
Yes.
Great, nice. It's coming back to the API thing. So this is one of the example of API, and it is divided into 3 parts. Till this, it is known as domain name. So domain name is like hosted on the server. It is the location where our document or resources found. API uses just a part of URL, API users, and it just takes information and brings back to the client. It is known as path parameter. And this is after the question mark, it is known as query parameter. So what query parameter is nothing, it just filters your data. For example, if in a document I'm having 10 pages, and if I write page 2, it will just fetch me the document with page 2 information, not the whole document, complete document. So this is query parameter, this is path parameter, and this is domain. And this is the complete API. Fine. So yes, So you might have heard about like SOAP testing, SOAP testing, and then REST API testing. So in very generic, simple terms, you just need to know like SOAP is a very old one, and most of the companies have stopped using this. So when you are seeing GD for many companies, you might have just seen Postman API testing using Postman, not SOAP nowadays. So it just supports XML format, and XML is a complex language than JSON. So most of the companies have stopped using SOAP, and it just supports post requests. So we will come to what the type of HTTP request later. You just need to know SOAP just support XML and post request, and REST APIs. They are new ones, the most popular ones, and they support multiple formats like JSON, HTML, text format, XML also, and supports multiple requests like post, get, put. So these are the HTTP requests which we will be sending in Postman. Now, coming to what are the types of HTTP requests. Are we all fine till now?
Yeah.
Great.
Yeah.
If you have any queries.
Yes, all good.
Okay.
Yeah, we're getting lots of thumbs up, so looks like all good.
Thanks, Isha. So coming back to the type of HTTP request. So the first one is GET. So GET is basically like select in database. We just fetch it. If we want to just fetch the data from the server, we just use GET. We're not updating anything, we're not inserting anything. Can you all thank you. So GET is basically like a slope. I think there's a lot of disturbance. Is everyone on mute?
Okay, I think should be fine now.
How I should. Yeah. GET is basically if we want to fetch data from the server. We are not updating, we are not inserting any data to the server, we're just fetching information. Post is if we want to insert or create a new element or new resource to the server. And for this, we have to send something which is known as request body or request payload in Postman language. We'll come to this later when I'll be, requesting one Postman request using post method. So post is when you insert or create any new resource. Put is if you want to update any of the record, you send a put request, and delete is just delete the record. So you send a delete request to the Postman. Now here comes the Postman. So Postman is a tool where we test our APIs. It's a very simple tool. This one, just like we use our phone to make phone calls, we use Postman tool for testing our APIs. So every request which you send in from Postman, you will get the response back in JSON, XML, HTML file format. We'll see this, and you just don't need to be, worry about like from where to get the APIs. It will be provided to you from the developers. You just need to write some validations and check the response. That's all you have to do. So I'll be covering the manual testing using Postman. And this is the tool which we are having, Postman. It's a freeware. You can download it. Just download in the web browser and just create an account and you are all done. It's a freeware. So after the session, make sure to download Postman, and I'll be sending few APIs which you can, perform hands-on and check your HTTP request and response.
And that's nice, Harneet, that you will be sharing something so that they can, go home and practice.
Yeah, so I'll be sharing this whole PPT, and I have mentioned like the endpoint, the validations, and yeah, everything.
Okay.
So last
Can we take one question? Veenu has her hand raised.
sure, please.
Yeah, hi Harneet.
Mhm.
So you said like basically the testing team will be getting the information from the development team, right? Like what to test, the API details.
Yeah.
So in what format the information will be provided? Like will it be like in my case, like usually there will be some specification documents in
Mhm.
our project. And I guess like I newly joined after a break, so I'm not sure how it happens around like in general. So I'm asking, my question is like, what would be the source of information for the testing team in order to test an API? Like in which form you will get the data?
So like if you are having any functionality to test it, like in my
Okay.
recent development, recent project, I used Postman very rigorously. So developer will just send you the endpoint,
Okay.
and this is the API which will be communicating between the two systems. So for my case, it was communicating with AWS DynamoDB, and the old system which my company is using. So there was DynamoDB and the system where every information was stored. So this API was communicating between the DynamoDB and the system. So it was fetching data from the system and putting everything into the DynamoDB.
Okay.
So the developer will provide you this thing,
Okay.
and any request body you have to enter. He or she will provide. It's just that here
Okay.
in this
Okay.
section you have to write few validations.
Okay. So basically the endpoint and the request body information will be given by the development team and okay.
And you just write these validations. And I don't think so you need to write validations. I'll get to this like when I'll be performing one request. Just one slide left for me,
Yeah,
and
okay.
then we can start with this.
Yeah, thanks, Harneet.
No worries. So this is important one. In your interviews you are asked like what is 403 HTTP requests. Since if you are testing APIs, you are getting response, and this is your HTTP request. So you will be getting, how can I? So this is the HTTP request get, which is select, and this is the HTTP response. So you should be aware of all the responses. HTTP response status code, since it is asked mostly in the interviews. So 200, okay, 201 is mostly we get when we are sending a post request or put request. Post request, basically, since you are creating any resource to the server, on the server. 3, not 4, not modified, bad request, requires authentication, forbidden, resource not found, validation phase, failed. So this one, these two requires authentication, forbidden, resource not found. They are mostly common when you are sending your request to the server.
So what is that not modified request?
So not modified is like when you are sending a put request, if you are updating anything and your server is not allowing you to allowing you to update that resource, you'll get the response. Mostly input when you are updating any resource on the server.
Okay.
So these are like actually, so there's this response which Harneet is saying, and these are the response codes. So these are like short codes. So 200 means okay, and then you can look at the response. But other than 200, all other are telling you something else has happened, mostly that they have not worked. And then,
Yes.
yeah, for various reasons. You can still look at the response details, to find out more, but this is like short codes that you should know the meaning of, which the server returns.
Yeah, thanks, Isha. And this was your, like, I think I'm able to answer your question. Like, if we are not getting a correct response, so we are get to know that if the response is valid or not through these status codes.
Yeah.
Yeah, as Isha mentioned, you can check, you can Google these responses, and yeah, 200, 401, 403 are the most common ones. And last thing, so when I'm doing an API testing, which things I should consider while testing APIs? So the first one is accuracy of data. So when you are sending a one request to the server, it sends some response. You should validate the data accuracy. So if I'm sending a request, I got this response. This is known as response payload. So I just need to verify if this data is correct or not. Accuracy of data. And then second one is status code. If a valid status code, if I'm getting a valid status code or not. And the time span. So how much time it took for API to get the response from the server. Error codes, if any, and then authorization. So like not every API, but few APIs need some authorization to get a response from server. So if I take one example, like I'm having a Google account, and if I'm signing to my Gmail account, I'm entering credentials over the web. And so it will, what API will do it will fetch my credentials from the client, and it will send back those credentials to server to validate. So server will then send a token to API to confirm that the credentials are correct, and then only I will be able to log in. So some APIs need some authorization to perform some tasks. So I will get the authorization part at the end of the session. And so these are the things which we need to check once we are, performing API testing. All good now. So I'll be just starting with the Postman tool right now. So we are good till now, everyone. Shall we start?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Great. Perfect. So this is the site from where I've taken all the APIs. And you can check the site and do some hands-on with these APIs. So I'm using these APIs to show you how to request a GET, put, post, and delete HTTP requests. So the first one, list users. So basically, as you can see, this is the API, your domain, your path parameter, and your query parameter. What it will do is, it will fetch all the users within the page 2. So if I'm using this API, I should get a response as 200 and response body as this. Coming back to my Postman tool, this is the Postman tool. You can create your workspace here. Can you see learning Postman?
Yeah.
Wait, since I think I have to, oh, that's okay. So I've created one workspace, learning Postman. You can also create one workspace for yourself. And there's a collection. Collection is nothing but a list of your requests. And one request is known as like one test case here. So if you want to create one request, one collection, you can do from here. So maybe ABC collection, you can give a description. So it will be your collection will be created, and you can just add one request from here. Request name, save to ABC, normal. And if you open this request, let me, it's not getting, strange. I don't know why it's not getting open, but basically you just create a collection, and you can just create one request from here also, plus sign, and later you can save it to any of the collections which you have created. So let me delete this one, or let it be. So basically this is your, workspace, and here you enter your request API, which is known as endpoint. So developer will use the term endpoint. So you should be knowing that endpoint is our API. And these are the HTTP requests which you will be sending. And yeah, you will get a response here. So they are, if I select list user response request, sorry, I just need to paste it here. What I'm expecting is it will list me all the users which are in page 2. So I got a response as 200. Time it took just 37 milliseconds. So it's basically in milliseconds only. And yeah, you just need to verify if I'm getting the correct response or not. So page 2 per page 6, total 12, total page 2, ID 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. So if I'm checking this, page 2, this, so I'm getting the correct response. So what does it mean is this API is getting the correct response from the server. This is how APIs works. So just communicate between the two systems. You just need to send request and get the response. So here parameter is your query parameter, which you have mentioned in the API itself, page value 2. Authorization will come to this later. And headers is the extra information which we send to the server. You don't have to provide this header information. It will be automatically sent with the API. Request body, we just need to write anything to request body when we are sending put or post request, when we are creating a new resource on the server, or we are updating any response on the server, any resource on the server. Prerequisite script is just like if we want to run any prerequisite script. I haven't used this in my career, and it's mostly not used. So you do API chaining if you want to run a request before running another request. You can do that. It is known as API chaining, which I won't be covering in this session since there's many things in API. So this is not a complete course, but I'm just helping you to start with your learning process. So if you refer to any online course, it will be easier for you to understand. And this is the test section. Here you will validate. You will write validations and get the test results. So if I'm checking this one, so this is the same API, list users, for which we got the response, list users. 200. We are not using any authorization. We are not using any body. It's just that we are writing few test validations. For me, I really don't prefer writing test validations, but if it's required in project, it's good to write one. Since if I need to check if like this data is present, if this name or first name or last name is present, I can simply search here. So you can just check if this name is present in your response or not. So if you don't have time, just search and check if you are getting the correct response, which you are expecting, or you can just write a few validations. So this is basically a syntax for writing validation. Test, validating status code. This is a user-defined name. I can change it. So you can say validating status code. So if I say validate status code, validate status code. So just checking if the response has got the response code as 200. So my response is getting 200. So my test case passed. If the response body has data, so my response body has got this data. So it has passed this request. But like it is passing the validation without checking the location. So if data is present anywhere else in the response, it will just pass the validation irrespective of the location. So if we just want to check like for which particular location this thing is present, this is syntax for this. So what we do is we parse this response body and keep it in a variable. So var is a variable, response is a variable var response, and I write json.parse response body. So what that will do is, this is also user defined page number and email. So it will just check if this variable, it will check if this variable has got page number 2, it has got page 2, and if it has got email as this, so it will just pass with the location and send you the response, like validate your response. Mostly I really don't use these validations, but if it's required in a project, you should be writing. And I have mentioned this validation query here for your reference. So you can just check your response. You can write your validation, sorry, using this. All good. So this is all. This is one API request which we have sent, which has got method get. So what we are doing is we are fetching information from the server, and this API, the task it is performing is, it is fetching all the user information and giving back to the client. That's all. So simple. So going back to another API request, if I want to fetch a single user, so it's just this API which I'll be using. This API, if I send, my response is 200 and first name and last name is Janet Weaver. So what I need to expect from this request, if I'm using page 2, my data should be Janet Weaver, which I'm getting. So just pass my test. I'm getting this, and yes, you can change your query parameter to get other information. Like this user is, this is the ID which we are getting. So this user has got ID 3. So you just need to filter your request with a query parameter, then you will get different responses. All good. So I think I have covered this get HTTP request, and then coming back to my post. So what post will do is it will insert or create a new resource on the server. So I'll be taking API from this source only. So what it is doing is it is adding this data on the server. So what response I should get? It is 201, and response body I should be having like this. So as I mentioned in my HTTP request codes, 201 is created. So the request, the body which you are sending, it is created on the server. Single user database, or single user data. So if create post data. So for this API, we'll be sending post request. And if I send it in the body, what I've mentioned is name as Haneet, job as a tester. So I'm creating this information on the server and I'm getting the response like this. So IDN created are created as like it is the system date. So it is 19th and IT is generated automatically. So I'm just passing this information to the server and I'm getting this information from the server. Status 200 created, and body, I just need to pass this one. That's all. And test, I'm just validating if the name is Haneet, if the job is tester, if I'm getting the response code as 201, it will pass my validation. So if I write software tester, my validation failed. So this is it. So when you are creating any request, you just need to click on this plus button, enter your API, enter your body. While entering your body, you just have to select raw and the format which you will be using. So as I mentioned that a Postman is the tool where we test our API, where we test our REST. This is the REST API. So it supports these formats: text, JavaScript, JSON, HTML, XML. So basically, we most of the time use JSON format. This is the JSON one. You just have to write this in the body, raw, JSON. Just write your JSON format data here. Test, if you want to add your validation, and then send response. And if you want to save your this request, like if I'm using this post request, I'll just let me check one get. If I'm using my get request again, if I send it, you can just save as to your collections. Okay, that's why. So maybe in demo REST API or ABC API chaining. So these are my collections. So you just need to save it. That's all. It's just like using your phone mobile, saving and you just need to send your request, get the response. It's that simple. So let me cover 2-3 more post requests. Like login successful. So not every time we will be getting the response as list. It just depends on project, what response we should expect from this response payload. So like here, if I use this URL, API login. API login. In the body, I've provided email and password, and it is mentioned here. Login successful. Everything is mentioned here. So you just need to use this API. You just need to add this to your request body or request payload, and you should be getting response as 200, and token should be like this. So when you are working on a project, you will get to know like what kind of response you should expect, what kind of status code, and what you should put in your request body. So if I send 200 OK, and my token is generated. And if you want to, like, if I don't provide password here, so what I should get as a response, bad request. It will show me an error, missing password. So I just have to write a password to validate this, to complete this request. So we are done with get and post. Everyone all okay? Hello?
Okay for me.
Yeah, okay.
Okay, yeah, we're getting thumbs up.
Sleepy.
Anybody has any question till now? Vinu. Yes, Vinu.
Hi, Harneet. You discussed about the validations part, right, Harneet? So I just have a question on that. Like, is it something based on any language or it is internal to Postman? Like, without
JavaScript. I think
yeah, this one. Yeah, this one.
This one is JavaScript.
JavaScript. Oh, okay. Okay. Yeah, thanks, Harneet. That was my question.
No worries. This is JavaScript. So it just depends on you. If you want to write some validation, you can do that.
Okay. Okay.
Otherwise, just search. That's all. I do like this. If you don't have time.
Yeah, sure.
Great. So we have done our GET request. So I have already mentioned this GET request endpoint URL and the validations so that you can have some hands-on, and you can just type this site name and check these APIs and do some testing on Postman. So I have covered get and post. Let me perform put and delete. So this is the put request which I'll be using. So what it will do is it will update the resource which is already present on the server. So we are just updating this record on the server. So I'm using this API. I'll be putting this on a request payload, and I should get 200 as a response, and this as response HTTP status code, and this as a response. So this is a put request. You can just edit your request like this and save it anywhere in your collection. You can make one collection, add your request to one collection, and then create new collection and add new request to it. So it's like you just need to, think like you are using a phone. So it will be more easier to you.
So Harneet, usually you use multiple collections for functionalities or for different projects. So how do you use collections?
I usually do like for different projects mostly.
Okay, thanks.
Mostly different projects. Since like it just depends on it's just individual preference. Since if like two projects have got the same functionality, maybe login or, different thing. So you can, have same collection to different project. It just depends on individual preference. So it's nothing hardcore. You can make collections the way you want to. You just have to arrange things.
It's like for organizing in any way.
Organizing, yeah. Like if I need to have some APIs which are relevant to only login, so I will just develop a collection named login and put every request there. If I want to have one different like request which just fetch customer information only, I will make one collection and put all my requests related to the customer under the same collection. So this is the way how you organize your data.
Okay.
And it just depends. Since each and every API will be different, and you will be getting different response. So you have to make sure, like once you will be working on a project, you will get to know how to organize it. And mostly you really don't want to save your requests, so that is also fine.
Okay, yeah, thanks.
Okay, and so put request. What put like? We'll be using this put request, so it will update this record on the server. So what I have to do is put my API and the body. So I'm just copying this thing only here. That's all. 200. So it just updated. So I just sent name and job. So server gave me a response that it was created on this date and time. So this was the put request. So you just need to check the body will be provided. This is known as payload, request payload. So you will need to provide the body when you are sending put and post requests, since you are updating and creating new record on the server. For get and delete, you really don't require a request body. So last one, delete.
1 minute, Harneet, one simple question. See, you're updating name and job. Like suppose if there is a where clause in the query, or for example, update name to this one, job to this one, where the employee ID is say 10 or something, then how we will send the request?
That's a different language SQL you are saying, but see, this API will send to only one thing. If I'm fetching,
you mean to update one record?
Yeah, like if you are selecting employee data, then it will just check the ID. It won't change the ID. So there will be only one specific ID which it will be changing. If there are multiple names to it, so I'll get to you for this question.
Okay.
That is SQL thing. So
yeah, can I answer this, Harneet?
Yeah, please.
Can I try? So Kavita, what Harneet is showing here is API testing. So the developers, I'm a developer, so the developers need to expose that. So if they have exposed, so right now, if Harneet enters here 2/3/4 and it doesn't mean anything to the API, it will give a bad request or something. I don't know the code because I haven't tested them.
Okay.
So the where clause is not when you are calling the API. It's either at the client side, you are already filtering the IDs and then sending, or
okay.
Yeah, so it could be a collection like here. Users too could mean that it could be user slash Melbourne. So then whatever.
Users too. Okay.
Yeah, I think I will be able to answer your query now. So user 2 is your ID.
ID. Okay. I understood. Okay, got it.
Really, I forgot. I don't know how it skipped my mind. This is the query parameter. So we are
Okay.
passing query parameter in the request.
Request. Okay. Got it. Thank you.
It will just update this ID.
Okay.
ID belongs to this.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I got it.
You really don't need a where clause. Nice question. So yeah, as I mentioned before, so you just filter your data using the query parameter. So if I write it like customer ID is equal to 2, so just update the record for the customer who's having ID 2. And if I want to fetch, like I usually fetch customer email, so I just write cust ID or cust email as this. So it will just give me response like for customer information, which is having that email address. So this is the query parameter. So you really don't need that where clause in it. Great, all good. And so we have covered put, get, post, put. Now the last one is delete. So delete.
Just before Harneet, guys, is it okay because it's already 6:30? Are you all okay to just continue and finish this session?
So I will be just covering. This is the last request.
Yeah.
And I have mentioned authorization. So I will just. I wanted to cover this as well. So let me quickly wrap up.
Okay.
So this is the release statement. You can use this API, delete, and paste it and send the request, and you will get the response. So this, I just want to cover one topic. This is the important one, authorization. Since you will get questions in your interview regarding how many types of authorization does Postman supports. So I've just covered 3. So there is also like cookie authorization, and you can just refer to some online resources to check how many authorization Postman supports. And yeah, that's it. So I've developed one collection for the, why am I? Collections are not showing. Yeah. So this is the basic authentication. You just need, like in authorization, you just need to, select basic auth from the drop down and provide username and password and just send. So I've kept this thing here in my PowerPoint. So you can just select this endpoint and use this authorization. So it's normal, basic authorization. You just provide username and password and authentication true, and you will get this as a response body and status code. The second one is API key. So you just need to provide app ID, key, and value while sending a request. So what this API is doing is taking like with information. So what I've mentioned in the query parameters, it will take with information for Delhi for 1 day only. So count as 1 query parameter. Delhi, you can change it to Chandigarh or any Melbourne. So it will, in the response body, you will get the with information for Delhi status. Bearer token, this is the most like used. So what it will do is it will create, like I've used this API. What this API will do is it will create a one repo to my GitHub account. So in a body, I've mentioned like create a repo named Hello World to my GitHub account. So how it will connect to my GitHub account, I have to provide a token. So if I open my GitHub account, so there's no repository named Hello World. And Why it is showing like this? So if I check my settings, if you go to developer settings and ask for generate token, and like I want to create a repository. So this is the token that is generated from my GitHub. So I need to give this authorization to Postman to connect to my GitHub account and create a repository named Hello World. So if I send it, so it is 201 created. So it has created one repository. And if I go back to my GitHub account, see. So these tokens help to communicate between the two systems, GitHub and your server. And you are just, since it's a post request, you are creating new resource. It has created one repository to my GitHub account. So I've just covered basic API and token as authorization in my request. So just have few, learn from online resource what other authorization you can use in your request. So I've just added this thing, request body. That's it. I think we are mostly done with the.
Yeah. Sorry for rushing you, Harneet. I didn't mean that.
All good since it's 6:30 and
yeah. No, it's a really, I think it's the best. I don't know. It's awesome session, and the demo is really great. Yeah, maybe because this is the one which I didn't knew much about. So yeah, it's thanks. And you were so prepared. You had already, like created collections and then researched so much. So thank you for that.
No worries. Yeah, I just want to say this is just a start. I hope I have made things more simpler for you, since we just think like this is API testing is very difficult and we can't do it. So I've made things simpler for you. So if you refer to any online source, it will be easier for you to, grab things now. And you can add more to your learning, since it's just not the complete course, as I've mentioned before. It's just a start.
Yeah.